At that point, when you were 10 to 12 years old, what was your ambition? What did you want to be?
Wow. I think when I was younger, I actually wanted to be an architect. That was what I wanted to do. And so I actually went to school to study architecture. I started with draftsmanship, trying to be that. So that was, whilst growing up, I was like, I wanted to design buildings. I wanted to do that kind of thing. Until on the way, God spoke to me that he had a different plan for me. And it wasn't that. Because I actually still went all through, did like 4 years of school, trying to, and I actually started designing a few buildings and stuff until I was like, you know what, I can do this, no doubt, but God would want me to do something else. And so, not knowing how it was going to work, I actually went into what God wanted me to do. And the thing is this, little did I know that all the things that happened to me while I was growing up was all preparing me for where God was taking me.
Wow.
I had no idea, because I'm able to the glory of God, handle certain things and all that just because I was able to do all these works, selling, doing all those things at a younger age to survive. And so that trained me, that made me appreciate the little, no matter how small that it comes into my hands, and being able to trust God for wisdom to multiply it and grow it and all that. So I believe that everything that happened during the journey was all working for my good. It was all preparing me into the place that God was taking me.
Wow. But for the young boy who wanted to be an architect, what you were seeing every day was so different.
So different. So different. I mean, there was nothing like it was going to work. But you see, I believe that from the beginning, God had put that in me. So I had that assurance in my heart that I won't remain here forever. It didn't come with ease. It came with hard work. It came with toil. It came with struggle. At a point in time, I moved from where I used to live with my mom. I just moved out of the house, just chasing guys. Like, we were going places, trying to survive. We slept wherever we got. Sometimes we go to do something for somebody at maybe we go for a church to do something, and then we stay there for the weekend as if it's just for the weekend. Before the owner of the house realized, we've been there for like 2 or 3 weeks.
Wow.
And like, guys, you need to move out. I think one time we went to stay at the barracks at Bemakam. We normally go there. We go to church at Labadi, then we go stay there. I mean, even the church thing, then I think I used to stay with my mom then at Begbese. So there are times you walk right from there all the way till about Circle, because that's how you can afford the transport from Circle to where you're going, but you can't afford, and sometimes you get to Circle, you walk back home. And most of the time we turn that into what we call prayer walk. But it's not like we want to do a prayer walk. We just can't afford the transportation. And so you just be walking probably from Circle to last stop, Agege last stop, or sometimes maybe 37 to Agege last stop. You walk back and forth. And over time, it became normal for me. It was no more difficult.
37 to Agege also.
Oh, yeah. As for Agege to Accra Central, there, me chasa. Yeah.
At what point was this?
Oh, this was when I was probably in JHS or something. I know I had just finished JHS, sorry. And I was moving on with my life, trying to find what I wanted to do. So I was in Modesco, trying to do draftsmanship for a while. I had to drop out, I think, during the 3rd year, because at the point the fees, we couldn't afford the fees anymore. So I dropped out of Modesco. So I didn't complete Modesco. After a couple of years, I got somebody who wanted to sponsor me back to school. So I went back again to New Century to try to finish that same architecture or draftsmanship. And that too, I couldn't graduate. And finally, I decided to go back to school again after a couple of years when God has started ordering my steps and certain things had started taking shape. So I went back to do Remedia, because then I didn't have the SHS. What I had was the City and Guilds certificate. So I went back for 2 years to do the remedial because I was still doing the ministry. I had started the ministry then and following and supporting other ministers, not for myself.
Okay.
And so I split the course into two. I did, I think I did 4 subjects for the first phase, and then I did another 4 for the second phase. And then that was what was able to get me into Pentecost University to then do marketing.
When you say first phase and second phase, what does that mean?
I needed a number of subjects to be able to apply to the university. And I couldn't do all 6 or 8 of them at a go because I was still doing the ministry, and there was the same thing, the ministry that kept me going as well. And so I couldn't make time to study to do all of it. So, and I wanted to get it right, so I split it into 2. So I did 4 courses for the first phase.
That was in 1 year?
In 1 year, I did 4. And I think the first year I got in, I had only 6 months to do it. So I did the first 4 courses in 6 months. And then the following year, I did the rest of the 4. And then I put them together, and then I applied to Pentecost University, then to read marketing.
So you actually didn't do an official WASI SHS?
No. I didn't go to any SHS. I actually didn't go to any SHS.
Wow.
Yeah, I just did model school. And I heard the school is not even there anymore. The building is gone.
At what point did this journey of, working from Agege to 37 for ministry begin?
Like I said, I think then I had completed junior high school. But because of how difficult it was for me to even go through and finish, I mean, at a point it was very annoying, the fact that your parents probably may always have to come to the school trying to plead with the teachers just to keep you in school. Because I was always, like, whenever we can't pay the fees, you were thrown out. To a point where sometimes I didn't want to tell them that I was sacked for fees. So I'll dress up saying I'm going to school, and then I'll go then I was a drama. So you could play and get some small coins. So I'll dress up, but I had my church clothes in my bag. And so when I get to town, I change, go to church, play, get something little just to keep pushing. But my mom also wanted me to stay in school. I wanted to study myself because I knew God had showed me where he was taking me, and I knew it was going to take only education as well for me to be able to make it the way he wanted me to. And so through it all, I had to still keep going to school. And by God's grace, I was able to finish the first phase, which was the junior high. And then when I was done, that was when I started doing some work by the side. It was around that same time I went to the phone card business, all those other things. So I joined a company. Then it was, what's the name? The telecom companies. Those times it was One Touch. And I think they had...
Was it Space Phone or...?
No, it was One Touch and Space Phone then, yeah. And then there was Star Call or something.
Yes.
Yeah, and all those things, yeah. Those the younger ones won't understand. And so I joined a company that normally they have bulk of those cards. And so we supply to the people in the kiosk and stuff that sells. So you needed to have clients, and then you supply them during the week, and then you go for the money. And that too, at a point, became, a problem. You always had this shortage. I don't know where it came from. There was always a shortage. But the shortage always kept you in the company, and you won't be able to leave. Because if you have shortage, what it means is you owe the company amount of money you can't afford.
You can't clear yourself.
Yeah, so every month they deducted a little bit from your salary, and you keep staying there, And that was a walking job. You walk for hours because you sort of like gather your customers in one big area, and then you move to the next and to the next. And because I had to survive, I had to survive. So once it had nothing to do with crime, and it was going to get me food to eat and to survive, I had to do it. And so, yeah.
So you played drums to survive. You began to sell call credits just to get by. In those moments when you get home from work, was there a song that you would sing?
There were songs. I mean, there were songs though, but around that time, the amazing thing is God wanted me to do something else. Anytime all these things were happening, I had the encouragement and assurance in my heart that it would pass. This would end one day, or this would end one day. And so I was never discouraged.
Really?
Ever. Because the point is, I had nothing to lose just to trust God. The point is, I didn't have anything anyway. So trusting Him would not take anything away from me, but would rather give me a hope. And that's what I did. I held on to the assurance He had given me that He's called me for something. And I didn't know what it was, but I was like, you're God, you're all-knowing, and so I trust you. And so I kept working, I kept believing, and through it all, I never stopped serving God. I would go to my church, work there, serve there. I remember then the church didn't give me anything, but I would still go. I was the first to go. I would clean, we'll go set up, we'll sweep. And there were times when I had to sleep in the church. Because what had happened was this: I knew that God wanted to use me, but I had to wait on my gift. Not knowing when it was going to manifest or anything, I waited on it. And so I spent more time in the house of the Lord, praying, worshiping. And there were moments when I complained. I'm human. I'm like, God, you said all these things to me, and I'm not seeing anything. I'm still struggling. I'm still suffering. I remember people, I had cousins and stuff. Sometimes some of them, their parents were abroad and things. They wear the stuff, and then after they've washed and washed and washed, and they're tired of wearing it, then they give some to you. There was a time I got this black shoe. I'll never forget. And it was the first time I got a shoe that wasn't old. Like it was new. I didn't believe it. And like I wore that shoe so many times. And I cherished it.
Whilst you were walking to Agege from 37.
Hey. So it was a really, really tough thing, but I think that the faith I had in God kept me going. It was the only thing that kept me going.
For the sake of a listener out there who may think this is like a movie, take us to one of those moments where you felt frustrated and you doubted what God had said about you.
Throughout the time that I was growing up in the ministry and preparing and all those things, there were times when I went places and you had people literally look down on you. I mean, one time I was invited to a church by a friend, and because of how I looked then, I mean, those who knows me from the past, like when you see me, my neck long, like all those weird, like I had this weird look. And the pastor looked at me from head to toe and asked my friend, "Do you think we are joking here?" It broke me, like it really broke me. But there's something I learned. Anytime somebody looks down on me or talks me down, it gives me more energy to work harder.
How?
I don't know how God gave me that energy, but anytime somebody disappoints me, anytime somebody talks down on me or looks down on me or maltreats me in any way, it strengthens me to work more. It means that whatever I have to deliver, it's not good enough. It means I have to go back. Because one thing I've learned is if what you carry has been tried and tested, you don't need approval to know whether it's good or bad. Like know how valuable what you carry is because it's been tried and tested. And so every time something happens, a challenge, I ask God. So because of that, every time a challenge happens in my life, I ask God, what do you want me to learn? What's the new thing you're trying to show me? What are you trying to show me? I wish that I could share some of the testimonies, but some of them, because it's still in preparation. But I started doing this, like I started doing a sound business, a studio. We opened a studio by God's grace, all those other things, just because I worked with a company that disappointed me, or at a point it was difficult to deal with. And I just went back down on my knees and said, God, next year by this time, give me mine. And that was it. And I worked hard towards it. And to the glory of God, today, I have mine. And so that's how all those things started for me. And so the thing is this, when the Bible says all things work together to the good of them that love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. It's true. You know, most of the time the things happen to us and all we can do is rather blame God rather than knowing if he loves you. The Bible says he will not allow anything that you cannot handle to come on you. So sometimes when these things happen, you need to ask God, what do you want me to learn? If he allowed it to come on you, it means that he's giving you the grace and the strength. You may be going through a tough time in your life, a struggle in your life. At a point, what to eat was a problem for me. There were moments where we literally had to eat and I always share this thing that there was gari. You know gari, regular gari.
Yeah.
But you couldn't eat it with anything else. There was nothing to eat it with. So somebody's wife's granite paste that they were going to prepare granite soup for the husband. Mm-hmm. We just poured water on the gari. So you fetch the gari and then you dip it in the granite paste and then you eat it. All we wanted to do was to be full. Once you feel like you're getting full, you just drink water on it and you should be fine.
Whoa. How many times did you have to do that?
Oh, a few times until we were caught. Because I was like, what happened to my granite paste? Like, the woman realized that granite paste was going down every time. And so it was part of the reasons we were actually kicked out of the house.
What did you move to from there?
So from there, I had a friend back in the day, which I still, a friend of mine back in the day. I would never, for the first time on air, I would appreciate that brother. He's a pastor now, Pastor Stephen Bennywood. Mm-hmm. He had a 1-bedroom, like a 1-room place, and so he took me in, and I think I stayed with him for over a year, about 2 years or so, until another friend of mine, Patrick Amposan, who gave me a Chimaya hall in a house that the man built, and so I stayed with them also for about 4 or 5 years before I was able to move to where I am now. So before then, I was just moving back and forth. Not because we had a family place, but I didn't want to stress my mom out or stress my parents out.
Okay.
And because being there, things were difficult anyway. And I had siblings that my parents needed to take care of. And I didn't want to add my stress to this. So I just had to leave home, just go survive somewhere else. And that was what happened.